Has the lecture started? I don't think the lecture has started. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, I think the facilitator has not. Is he here? But Abdullah. Sorry, I don't think I can see anybody talking.
Hello?
Hello, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi I want to please apologize for the late start. Allah forgive everyone first. Today's session is about project planning, putting it all together. At the start of this project management training, we started by introducing the whole thing about the training. And we commenced with the fundamentals, after which the initiation process was done for us last week. Today's session is about the planning stage. In project management, we try to look at implementing in order to achieve a set of goals. So as a result, we try to look at the various parts to a project. From the project life cycle that was introduced to us at the beginning of the course, it shows to us that a project life cycle has 4 basic points. That is the project initiation, the planning, the execution, and the closure. So in some situation, it used to be said to be a 5 steps approach in which monitoring and control is added as one of the steps in project management. But generally, monitoring and control is embedded in the whole process from start to finish. As a result, these 4 approaches usually look at as the life cycle of projects, and that is initiation, planning, execution, and closure of the project. So planning is the second phase in project life cycle after initiation. And the whole idea about planning is the process or processes that are being implemented to establish the scope of the efforts required to carry out a project. It's at that stage that you define and refine the goals and objectives being set at the initiation point. There is also a period where you develop the course of action that is required to attain those objectives set for the project. During project planning, we try to capture everything that is to be done, both what started before planning and what is expected to be done after the planning stage till the project is completed. As a result, a project plan is said to be a living artifact that serves as the team's roadmap, the project team executors roadmap throughout the life cycle of the project. So this requires that at the planning stage, we need to set the scope, the goals, define it appropriately with the actions to follow, to be carried out as a result of those steps. We need to determine the time frame for the project execution from the beginning to the end. You need to bring together project team of people that will implement the project. Also, we'll set the task and the milestones. Those are the actions to be carried out at one stage or the other till the end of the project or till when the goal of the project is achieved. Another thing that is very important during project planning is the need to create a work down structure called WBS. The structure of how the project is to run. Then the budget. The budget of the project or the cost, the estimate of the money required to be spent in carrying out the project to achieve the set goal. Also, the management plan or the change management plan, the risk management plan, the communication plan also need to be set during the planning stage. Please, I hope you are following me, please. Hello.
Hello, yes, we are.
Yes, we are following.
Sir, we are following you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So having said that, the first thing of necessity is a project goal. And this is the overall target of the project. For example, if the project is to build a house. During the NSAS period, the High Court in Lagos Island was burnt down. Now they're about to start the reconstruction of the court building again. So the goal of that project is to rebuild the High Court in Lagos. So that is the overall target of the goal, to rebuild that house. Or all of us want to build a house. Our target is we want to build, that's the goal. I want to build my house. So that need to be captured and be set appropriately so that you don't mix it up with something else. Or maybe it's a problem that needs to be addressed. Let's say that Lagos is known for traffic jam. So if the goal is to reduce the traffic situation in Lagos State, or let's say about 15, 20 years ago, we used to have refuse dump almost all taking over Lagos State. Maybe the problem is to manage the refuse in Lagos. So we need to set that goal appropriately from the start. Then maybe the desired outcome at the end of the project must be stated properly so that from the start, you know where we are going and we know the targets that we are running after. So as a result, any goal or any problem to be solved by a project must be smart. So we need to smart our goal from the beginning. And that is to say, the goal must be to address specific action or to achieve a specific set of objectives. Then that thing that you want to achieve must be measurable. Can we measure it? It must be attainable, it must be relevant and time-bound. Because smart goals is what make anything you are doing to be meaningful, to have value. If we say a goal is specific, it means the objective has no ambiguity for the project team to misinterpret. It means what you want to do, there is no difficulty in understanding where we are going. Secondly, when we say a project is measurable, it must have certain metrics or certain values that help the project team to know when the objective has been met. Then for a goal to be attainable, then the project team must agree on the objective, must agree that this objective, together we know it is specific, is realistic, is very relevant, is very meaningful. And that is on the R part of a SMART goal. That goal fits the organizational strategic plan or supports the project charter as being enumerated at the initiation stage. Then there must be a time frame for the implementation of that goal. So that is what, because when you have a SMART goal, it helps you to see the full scope of a project. Then it helps to determine the visibility, how visible, how realistic the something is. So as a result, it gives you the project a concrete terms of success at the end of the day, that we have achieved, we've completed the building of the courthouse, everything is there, is running and is set. So all this is just saying that whatever you want to do must be something that is based on quantifiable or tangible metrics, things that you can measure, that you can assess, that people can see. A third party or a third eye can come and say, that guy has really done the work and it is good. For example, a road construction that is done at the end of the day, it has not relieved the people of the traffic situation. Then it shows that the goal is not smart from the beginning. Has not addressed the problem being identified appropriately, or there is a wrong identification of the problem. And that is why when we talk about goals, we talk about objective key results of what is to be achieved. So the objectives are things that you define to be able to achieve, or a desired outcome that you want to see. Then the result are the things you can measure at the end of the goal after being done. So as a result, when setting goals, well, we should also put down in paper the objective key result, the OKR of the project itself as well. So it is also said that any objective of a goal must be something that it must be aspirational. It must align with organizational goals. I've mentioned that before. So then moving on to the scope. The scope of a project is a detailed description of what the project aims to achieve and the output or the product that is expected at the end of the project. So the scope must define the project properly. There must be the baseline of what is to be done. What is not there must not be put in, and what is to be there must not be removed. And that is why we talk about the scope, the in scope, the things that is expected to be achieved are the things that we refer to as the in scope, while anything that is not part of the project is out of scope. And we need to understand this at the beginning. State them. What I've been asked to do is ABC and not ABCDE, or is AC and D and not ABCD. So all these must be stated in the project charter from the beginning, so that we know where we are going, what is expected of us, and what is not part of the expectations of the project. That's what the scope tries to do. So as a result, we need to manage our scope very well, so that enthusiastic sponsor or stakeholder may not derail our project or turn it to something else. For example, yes, we want to put up a building for the new courthouse. For the building we want to put up is 3-story building. Now feel that if you have more courtroom, because they said there are delays in court processes, let's have more courtrooms, employ more. Please change the, don't build 3-story, build it to a 7-story building. That is out of scope. That is a scope creep. Once that occurs, and if we have to go ahead, we need to go back and redesign, so that we will not have building collapse. As a result, we must also have scope management in place as well. So once you have defined your project requirements, you know the things needed. For a 3-story building, we need a foundation that is of this capacity. We need the number of rods, cement, and the lights. You have defined the requirements of the project. So if it is being changed to a 7-10-story building, then you must go back and add to the requirements or to the things that are needed. So as a result, we set a clear project schedule. When are we starting? When are we ending? If you are increasing a building from a 3-story building to a 10-story building, then the timeline must change. So whenever there is are we going ahead or we are sticking to our plan? If it is to go ahead, project costs will be affected. All those ones must be set in place. Once you have a scope management in place, whenever there is anything that is not part of the scope comes in, you'll be able to remove it. Or there is a change, an important change, that we need to adjust and see how to move back and move on to the next stage. Then, even if you have put your scope management in place, you must learn to say no for something that is not achievable. So you learn to say no, and you learn when to the control process of a project so that you can achieve the desired goal in the long run. I've mentioned scope creep. Scope creep is when a project's work starts to grow beyond what is originally agreed upon during the initiation phase. So when that happens, then the stakeholders, the organization, the project team need to be made aware. Then a decision needs to be taken in order to change the budget, adjust the schedule, improve, add to the resources, and ultimately you'll be able to achieve the overall objective as set from the beginning. Now we come to time frame. Said in the planning, you must do the time frame of the project. The time frame I'm sorry, I'm not the one sharing the slide. Please, you have gone beyond where we are. The time frame of a project is talking about the duration of the project, the scheduled time for each task. That will be set at during the planning stage. And the team members must agree, is this thing achievable within this set time? You want to build a house, as I've used as an example, and you want to do the foundation. You now allocate 2 days. You must agree, is it possible? Or will it take 10 days? So that you give adequate time and create a time buffer at the same time for it. So that project timeline, lifeline, is defined as what will run the project from start to finish and what will land the project in the long run. And that is to say, after you have finished the project, it is tested and okay, and it's running. That is to say, the time frame of a project is not just the time to finish the building construction. It is the time to ensure that the building is ready and all necessary fittings are in place and they are working effectively. As a result, after putting up a building, you need to test the fittings, make sure everything is intact and there is no leak. Or the electricity is well connected and there is no problem. So each part of the project must be tested and certified to be okay before you can say the project is completed. So the time frame of a project is what will run the project from the beginning to the end, to the point of landing the project, and that is to say it is tested okay, every part is seen to be working as expected. Now, that is the overall view about project. Now, how do we commence the planning phase? Starting the planning phase of a project, start with the kickoff meeting. That is the first meeting whereby the team members for a project will come together. And who are these team members? The stakeholders, the sponsor, the team manager and his team. Each person that is to handle what must be involved in the team. As a result, you can have some kickoff meeting with very large number of, depending on the project size. And it can be as small as 5 if it's a small project. At that meeting, the vision or the goal and the scope of the project is reeled out to the people for them to understand what they want to do. Then you create a shared vision for all the team members. Everybody must share the idea and understand that we are aligned to the vision of what we want to achieve you must agree that it is achievable, and we'll start to do the bits of the project gradually from that point. Additionally, you create a team rapport by assigning roles to individual members of the team, and where there need to be some overlapping roles, you need to let each member understand that this one is dependent on this. And that is why when you set goals, you set their dependencies as well. So at that point, a team member needs to understand who is dependent on him or her for his own movement to continue, or that his own work will affect the continuity of other people's projects. If we want to build a house as an example, if those who are to handle the foundation derail the project from that point, it's going to affect the timeline across the project lifetime. So it means those who are going to put the fittings, for example, the roofing, depends on those who are going to do the construction of the building to the end stage. Then those who are going to put the electrical wiring need to work along with them. So all those must be defined, and we know where we depend on each other for us to move at that point. As a result, we do that by creating that synergy between the team for us to understand one another and move on. Then we need to set our communication means of communication. How do we communicate any change? How do we communicate progress of the work to one another? How do we tell when there is a problem? How do we escalate the problem? How do we tell the sponsor when there is a need for a change? We must establish that so that each person knows who to contact when there is a problem, like a reporting structure or an escalation table. Then means of documenting our activities will also be tabled at that meeting. Then you set expectations. What do we expect at the end of this period? So such a meeting is very important and needs to be put together with the necessary people in place. Then it's something that should not drag too long, 1 hour, 1.5 hours as a starting point. As a result, there has to be communication to the team member ahead of the meeting and their roles defined for them to understand what they are coming to do at such a meeting. Then we move to building a project plan. The kickoff meeting will lead to building a project plan. And what is expected to happen at that point is, it is when we need to write down or determine the task, the activities that need to be carried out. Put the task in place. What are the things that we need to do from beginning to the end? Then we arrange them. Which one comes first? Which one follows? Then we determine the milestones. By the time we carry out A, B, C, D, it must give us D or E. Once we get that, then we are good. We determine the milestones, the deliverables, and the resources. What are the things that we must achieve by day 10 of the project? Then what are the resources that we need to put in place to achieve that? Then we also need to create the work breakdown structure. How do we move from one point to the other? The statement of work for those that we are going to be engaging along the line, maybe a supplier or somebody that is to carry out a work and move on. Then we also the time frame in the role. Then now coming to task and milestones that I mentioned in building a project plan. Tasks are activities that need to be carried out. They are the bits and pieces of the project. They are like they are time bound. they must be specific with time. Then task ladder up to milestones. It's not just an activity, it must give us an achievement. You cannot be carrying out work, just be doing it and not have an achievement that we desired at the end of it. So they only talk about milestones. Milestones is a group of tasks, or is a task, can be just a task, and it can be group of tasks or activity that signifies the completion of a deliverable or a phase of the project. So a project of building a house, by the time we finish, the bricklayer, we dig the ground, we put the blocks, we put the rods, then the concrete, then we finish it, then we must reach the foundation. So the foundation is a milestone. Once we get there, then we have achieved a milestone. So milestones are group of tasks or a particular task that when carried out must give a particular milestone, or a specific phase must be achieved. It is said to be a significant point within the project schedule that indicates progress. So achieving a milestone tells us that we are progressing as we move on. Then it helps to keep the project in check and on track. So the milestone set, once we are getting to each milestone at the set time, it shows that the project is progressing as expected. Then another thing is that milestones help to uncover area that might lead to adjustment in scope, timelines, or resources to meet the project goal. So you may not have envisaged that, and something happened and we need to adjust. So milestone is what tells us we expect to meet this, but we are not meeting it. Then we need to look at what happened. So it may lead to change in resources and timeline. Another thing milestone does is whenever a milestone is achieved, it's a motivation to project team, and it also illustrates to the stakeholders that the project is progressing very well. So the setting of tasks and milestones is something that can be done using two approaches. We can use the top-down scheduling, and we can use the bottom-up scheduling. For the top-down, it is a way in which is an approach that the project manager lays out the higher level milestones, then work to break down the effort into project tasks. Is by saying these are the various milestones that must be done. They will now identify the task to now work down. That is from up to down. And it can also be from bottom to up. That approach is that the project manager look at the individual tasks and try to match it to the particular milestone that are manageable chunks to achieve. So coming to work breakdown structure, as I said initially, the work breakdown structure is a process of dividing or subdividing the project tasks and milestones into hierarchical order. It's a table that shows each point to be achieved by whatever time, or a chart or a map. So then it's a means of arranging the deliverables and the project work into smaller, more manageable components. So it shows an overview of the work to be done with their time frame. I give an example of using, you can see a WBS to show it. So we have the formation, the construction, then the finishing. What are the things to be done under formation? So we can look at the formation as a milestone, the construction as a second milestone, then the finishing as the last one, whereby under formation, the task to be done is you must bring up a blueprint of what is to be done. That is to say, for a building, you put up the building plan, get it approved, get it certified, then you can move on. Then you get labor to dig. Once labor dig and the necessary things are done, then the foundation is completed. Then the construction, get materials to be used, the labor to carry out the work, then the labor will now build from beginning to the roof. That is another set of tasks to be done. Then finishing, plumbing, electrical, painting, landscaping. So that's an example of a work breakdown structure that can be implemented for a building. Then coming to project budget and procurement. A project budget is the estimated monetary resources. Walaikum salam.
Please, that the slide is not moving as you're explaining. So we can't really on the slide being projected. Thank you.
Okay, I will inform the person in charge. Please kindly let the slides move along with my lecture so that people can follow, please.
Oh, please, start. Can they send the slide to the group so we can be following? Because maybe that will be better. Because the slide has remained like this for long. For long, like you've done tasks and milestones long ago, and the person has not moved at all. Okay.
I'm sorry for that. We are on managing budget and procurement.
Yeah, we have gone past the split and the slide is still here.
Okay. So the project budget is the estimated monetary resources needed to achieve a project goals and objective. Then budgeting in project management world is a complex process because it involves different parties and documentation. So there are so many people that requires money because project is about spending money. So budgets are created at the initiation phase, but it runs throughout the lifetime of the project because you need to buy, you need to pay. So you only set, okay, this is the cost or the estimate of what you want to set. So, and it helps to control costs as well as act as the baseline for the financial portion of the project. Another important feature of budget is that the necessary people to work on the project, you need to factor their money. How much will the labor collect? So everybody's expenses to be factored into the project. For those of us who are Muslims, one thing that is so common is to expect people to work free. But in where I work, we used to have a slogan. We said, for every action, it is not free sabilillah. It is not free sabilillah. It's not free. It must be with a cost. Factor the cost. The person may collect the money and donate it to charity. That is not a problem. That is going to help anybody picking a project that has been done and be able to factor the appropriate cost for that project. If 10 people work on a project and 2 were not paid, and you now complete the project like that, Another person who want to do the same project will think the money for the 10 people, the money paid to those 8 people were paid to the 10. So that's why we need to factor the cost of the team members. All services rendered must also be captured in the project budget. The materials needed to factor them appropriately. So, but project differs from one goal to the other. So there are some projects that doesn't give room for error. Such projects have no margin for error. Whereas some accommodate, they are flexible. So we need to understand that project, is it the type that is flexible or the one that is fixed? Many are times projects that are waterfall, that are managed by waterfall approach, tend to be very, very stringent because they have determined their money. Or a project in which the stakeholders have already told you the amount they are spending. So you have to work within such a budget. Somebody asked a question last week that how do you manage a situation whereby the cost of things have gone up? That is to tell you that they have zero tolerance for error. Such a project ought to factor some fund that will get to. So if it is a flexible project, you understand how to manage. Because the flexible project that can accommodate more fund doesn't mean you waste fund or just spend anyhow. No, we must be accountable for every kobo that we spend. So that's why it said that the budget must align with the project scope and the stakeholders' requests. So in certain budgets, we utilize this approach. One is to reference historical data. A project of such, a similar project that has been done in the past. How much did they spend? How did they come about that project? Organization too can come up. Last year, we built a road, 10-kilometer road for 5 billion. With the cost of things that has gone up, we can say it is going to add so amount to the project. So from the historical perspective, we know what to spend, then we can determine what we are going to spend for this year or for another project next year. So another thing you must do is to utilize your team, mentors or manager. So you get into the habit of asking for your team to double check anything that you are proposing so that you can be sure, because they too are part of the project budget building. So ask them to check, go and find out, is this budget going to work or not? Then you time face your budget. How the amount you have, okay, you want to spend 10 billion for this project. What are we going to spend for a project of 6 months? What will we spend in 1 month, in 2 months, in 3 months? So, and you keep checking, you don't stop, you keep checking as you move on the project so that you don't get derailed, because part of the things that can affect a project is the budget, the money to be spent. You have to spend 1 billion. Before you get to the middle of the project, you have spent 900,000. Of course, the project is a failure at that point. So that anytime there is a change, maybe price increase or situational change, that it's not always when there is price, there can even be a price drop. You need to quickly check on what to do and communicate appropriately to your sponsor. So the cost that you must factor when you are doing your budget are various types. We have those that are direct costs and some that are indirect costs for your project. A direct cost, these are the costs of items that are necessary in order to complete the project. Such costs that are direct are the wages, the cost of materials, equipment rentals, software licenses, related project-related travel and transportation costs, staff training. All those ones are direct costs that you pay to people directly. You must give it. You can't change it. You can't bend it. So you have 10 staff. Their wages is 50,000 per day, and they have to work for 15 days. You factor it across 50,000 times 15. Their money must be intact. They must not be affected by material costs. The same thing, the material cost, if it jumps up, doesn't mean the wages must now come down. So all those are direct costs that must be taken care of, because if those money are not available to those things, the project will not move, even if you have all the expertise in this world. Then the indirect costs, these are costs for items which do not directly lead to the completion of your project, but they are essential for the project team to do their work. They are referred to as overhead costs. Such includes administrative costs, utilities, insurance, general office equipment, security. The security will help to secure the material or to protect the work from going on. If you work in places where the area boys or the Omonile will come and tell you before you put any sand or block, then you must pay. You factor them. Security fund, they also factor their own too as part of security anyway. So insurance for your workers must not be toyed with. So all those must also be factored into the cost of into your budget. Then you must do a baseline budget. Baseline budget is an estimate of project costs that you start with at the beginning of your project. Set it as the baseline. This project.
I have to tell you that it's not moving about.
Sorry for that. So you set that cost at the beginning. It helps you to keep track whether you are derailing or you are on track. So then this, doing a baseline, will assist you to be prudent or to be cautious in your expenses and to keep checking regularly. So, and other things that we need to know about budgeting is cash flow. How money is going out as the project is moving, which the issue of funding, then the capital expenses, CapEx, operating expenses, you need to factor them appropriately in your budget. Because an organization will want to do a particular project, but they may need to do some capital expenses that will serve beyond the project they are doing. For example, you want to do a project in which you want to reach out to people in terms of online internet communication. You now feel if you have a mast in which you have your own direct communication, it is going to help you. Now, what you just needed is how to communicate online effectively. The mast you are doing is a capital project that will serve the organization beyond this one project. So that you now need to factor the capital project appropriately, and the organization needs to know that maybe the money for such a capital expense should not be part of the project expenses. For example, putting up a building to train people. The training is what the project want, the project goal, want to train people. But that place, there is no building where we can use. Now you have to put up a building. That building is a capital project. It's going to serve beyond this particular project of training people. So we capture it appropriately so that we don't make mistakes. Then this one will answer the question of the last week, contingency reserve. You must have a contingency fund that in case of any risk, in case of any problem, we are going to fall back to this particular fund. So there must be contingency, and there are funds added to the project estimated cost to cover identified risks and those that you cannot. So they are called project buffers. You need to create them. You should also have a management reserve. That one will cater for unidentified risk, while the contingency will cater for identified risk. So, and that's why contingency reserve are defined as estimated amounts, whereas management reserve are generally a percentage of the total cost of the project. You just keep it as. So those two reserves will help whenever there is problem of fund. Now, leaving the budget to coming to the risk. For every project, there is possibility of an error to occur. There is bound to be problem along. So risk management is the process of identifying and evaluating potential risks and issues that will impact your project. It is an ongoing practice throughout the life cycle of your project. So risk management typically involves the following steps. You identify the risk, you analyze the risk, you evaluate it, you treat it, and you monitor and control the risk so that it does not happen again. And that is why those 5 are the risk management life cycle. So what do you mean by identifying the risk? It is a phase of risk management process in which you try identify and define the potential project risk with your team. You have to sit down and ask yourself, what can likely occur as we move on with this project that we want to do? We want to build a house. What can likely occur? Because it's going to affect the timeline and may affect the resources as well. We need to identify that there can be price increase. We need to identify that there can be problem from the authority. We can also say that there can be natural disasters. All those, even the workers may fall sick. Those risks must be identified. Now, the second is to analyze each of the risks. You determine their likelihood and potential impact. If a worker should fall sick out of 10 workers, will it affect the work being done, or the 9 remaining workers can still do the work? Analyze it. What will it bring? What will it cost the organization? So that you'll be able to state them appropriately on a risk management chart that you create. When you identify a risk manager, you must create a risk management chart as well. So serious risk with high probability of occurring pose one of the greatest threats. This risk can occur, and it's a very high one. So you need to identify it and give it proper attention. Now the next stage is to evaluate the risk. Now, use the results of your risk analysis to determine which risk should be prioritized. Once you analyze your risk, you'll be able to evaluate, know the ones that you must put your eyes on. In a volatile area where the ammonia will keep disturbing construction of building, the risk of it occurring is so high. You need to keep an eye on it. What do we do? Do I get security persons to be on ground to prevent it from happening? Or what do I do? Should I just put their money aside? You need to look at how to manage the risk. And that is the 4th stage, to treat the risk. During this phase, make a plan of how to treat and manage each risk. You might choose to ignore minor risk, but serious risk need detailed mitigation plan. Then the last part is to monitor and control the risk. Now, once you have seen what the risk is, you have prioritized, you have analyzed, so you assign team members to monitor or to track it or to mitigate it so that you can move on with the project. So as a result, we need to have a mitigation plan. I think we'll still get to that. Now, as you are looking at the risk, there is also the possibility of seeing some opportunities in your risk management analysis. So because an opportunity is a potential positive outcome that may bring additional value to a project. So an opportunity is also a potential positive outcome. So while risk is negative, opportunity is positive. So as you are looking at the possible negative effect to a project, you can also see some positive impact. You need to see that and utilize it. And what opportunity is to bring about is, at times it helps to reduce the time spent on the project. So that's why it is important to recognize opportunities and capitalize on them as they appear, so you can reach your project goals faster, more cheaply, or with less effort. So look at some examples of risk and opportunity. Completing a project milestone ahead of schedule is an opportunity in which you may not have envisaged, or you budget to buy block for 200 naira, you now got it for 150. So it's a top, because in the process of trying to look for how to reduce costs, which is the likely risk, you now get a cheaper price. For example, in my own organization, we wanted to do a distribution in Warri today, and we are looking for how to get to spend less on the materials. In searching, we discovered that the price there in Warri is about 75,000 for a particular material, and we got it in Lagos for less than 60,000. So in the process of reducing the cost, we are now searching for a place where we can get it. We now get it cheaper. Then the next risk to that is transporting it to the venue. How much will it cost? Then we discover that it is going to cost far, far less. In the long run, the material we spend just about 63,000 instead of 75. So that's why, as a project manager, you should always be on the lookout for potential opportunities when developing your risk management plan. You also do, as you do for a risk management plan, you also do an opportunity management plan as well. Look at those opportunities and try to see how to assist you. So when we have identified risk, how do we mitigate it? How do we solve it? We have 4 approaches: avoid, minimize, transfer, or accept. How do we avoid a risk in risk mitigation? This strategy seeks to sidestep or avoid the situation as a whole. We want to get to a place as fast as possible. This route, there will be traffic jam. We avoid that route and go through another route. It may take us, the travel distance may be more, but we'll get to the place earlier than as we have expected. It's better for us. So, to avoid the risk. Some risk, once you have analyzed, you can avoid this risk, just move away. So another risk management mitigation is minimize. You mitigate a risk that involves trying to minimize the catastrophic effects that could have on the project. The key to minimizing risk starts with realizing that the risk exists. You must know that it exists. Don't say it doesn't matter. It exists. That is why you will usually hear mitigation strategies referred to as workaround. So once you believe that it exists, you know how to work around it, whether to avoid it entirely or see how you can move on without it affecting you. The next one is transfer. The strategy of transferring is to shift the responsibility of handling the risk to someone else. Instead of something affecting all of us, we push it to someone to manage it so that others can face the work at hand. Then the last one is to accept. You can accept the risk as a normal course of doing business. So active acceptance of usually means that you set aside extra funds to pay your way out of trouble. So in Nigeria today, there is hardly a way you can avoid people from collecting bribe. Those who have been asked to come and investigate your project of building a house, they have come, you have all your papers, you have submitted. You can't proceed until you get your papers being approved. There is no reason. They just hold on the paper. 2 weeks, 1 month, 3 months. And you have a target to finish your project within a specific time. So you might need to factor their own. So you accept them as a part of the risk and you set aside their money as you move on. So that is how to accept a risk. You need to document it and see how to work around it. And the other thing is about communication and documentation. So we need to define how we want to communicate with project team and the stakeholders. Is it through email, through WhatsApp, phone call, through meetings, the frequency, duration? All those ones need to be agreed upon. It should be in the plan. When there is a problem, how do we communicate with the stakeholders for a change or for them to add more money for us for the project? How do we document our activities as we move on so that we don't lose track of anything that we have done? The last part is what project management approach we want to use for our project, so that before we start the execution, we have defined it. So is this project one that is a straightforward one that waterfall approach can work for, or is it a project that iterates? Any iterating project will have the plan being visited regularly and continuously. And you might need to change scope, change resources as the need arise. So as a result, you may need to use approach like Agile, Lean, and various iterating project management approach. So the last part is that for a project, the planning stage is the most important part. You spend more time during planning, you'll be able to execute your project easily and conveniently. But you rush your planning, you come back to replan because the project may not see the light of the day. Or you miss a step in the planning, the project may be derailed by that singular act. So as a result, we need to ensure our planning is thorough, well detailed, documented, and everybody aligned on that plan before we move on with our project. I had an experience with a project I helped supervise with an organization in collaboration with us. You want to give palliative to people, you want to assist them, and you are looking for about 1,000 people with specific condition, and you want the list of those people to be ready in 1 day. That is not possible. At least 3 or 5 days will be okay. We have to change most of the in implementing the project, there were issues. Because certain errors were made in the plan that we put in place worked, but not totally without avoiding, because there were delay in delivery, which affected shifting the day of distribution. So all those things must be planned appropriately so that we can have a project well implemented to reach the goal as expected. Pray Allah guide us and assist us as we. For a Muslim, we must plan all our activities. Allah has planned our life for us.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello?
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam. Okay.
I said, I've deferred going. I have some questions. I don't know if you finished or what.
I'm through.
Okay.
I will take our questions when we.
Can I go ahead with the now? I said, can I ask the questions?
You can go ahead with the question.
Okay, sir. My name is Abdulakim Bashir Tijani. I'm joining you from Kano State. Thank you for the presentation. My first question is about, please, I need more explanation on
Hello?
you mentioned something about the top to bottom and then down to top to bottom and then bottom to top. I do not exactly get that explanations. And then secondly, it's about the issue where you started example with the feasibility, that's people volunteering. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Hello? Okay. Does that mean, are you saying that, for example, when planning for a project, if someone among the members decide to volunteer, should we just set aside the money exactly which is meant to be paid, even though the person is volunteering? For example, let's say the project manager, that services to be volunteered by someone is supposed to cost 10,000. So that means that one will include that 10,000 in the budget plan. And then the other question is about the issue of this contingency reserve and the management reserve. Is there any specific percentage that a project manager should assign? For example, let's assume someone budgeted for like 5 million project. And are you saying that can one say that he should at least set aside like 3% to be contingency or 2% management reserve or what? These are some of my questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm on the first one. Talking about the top-down scheduling and bottom-up scheduling. It's about the milestones. What I was trying to say is so you see, when you want to do a thing, you have to bring out the things that you need to do from one stage to the other. Let me use the building construction that I use as an example. If you want to build a house, certain things that need to be done. We need to dig the ground. We need to get materials. That is to buy the materials. We need to work. We need to get labor, get a painter, get an electrician. So all those activities that are to be done, you can now schedule them in two approach, either top down or bottom up. For top down is that we first of all identify each major areas of the building. For example, if you want to build a house, we need to do foundation. We need to do the roofing. We need to do finishing. Those three are major things that we do in building. The foundation, the building itself to the roof, then the finishing part of the building. So when you identify that, it can either now be that you first of all identify those three major areas: the foundation, the building of the putting of the building to the roofing, then the finishing. You can, that three that I mentioned is from top. You now start to identify what tasks will be done for each of those activities. So those first three I mentioned are the milestones. Now, what task will be done to ensure the foundation is completed? Now identify the task. You list them under foundation. What do we need to do to put the building up to the roof? You identify the task to be done: setting of blocks, mixing of cement, the sand, the water. All those ones must be done to put the building to the roof. Then finishing. Under finishing, carpenter will work, the electrical fittings to be done, the chairs, the plumbing, those are tasks. Now, working from those first three of foundation, putting the building to the roofing, then finishing, those are the tasks, those are the milestones. Then the other ones I mentioned are the tasks. It can also be from bottom up. You first of all lay out all the tasks, all the things that should be done. You lay them out. You now identify what will these following tasks lead to. This one will lead to foundation. You now work from the task to the milestones. From the task to the milestone, that is the bottom up approach in scheduling our tasks and milestones in project plan. Then on the volunteer worker, that should their money not be factor and the like, or we should not allow volunteering. Volunteering is allowed. But the first thing is when you are doing your plan, don't put forward that you are going to get 10 volunteers to do the work. That is wrong. You know, we are talking planning stage now. First of all, how many people do we need to do the work effectively? We need 20 people. You write out the cost of paying the 20 people down. Now, during implementation, during execution, you can see people who want to volunteer. For example, in our own foundation, we went to build borehole for people, for a particular community. In the process of doing the community said, we also want to do now. They said we should not bother the labor to do the bricklaying work to erect the stanchion or the service point, that they will do it. Now, in our own planning, we have factored the money for those laborers. For doing execution, we did not spend the money. So when we want to write the final project summary of how the project went, we are going to write the cost that we have budgeted. However, we are going to put there that the following were done by volunteer. So that is the two difference that we need to identify. But it will be wrong for a project manager to plan that volunteer are the ones that will do the work. Now get to the fee, you didn't factor the amount, now get to the fee, they are requesting for money. So you won't be able to attend to such a thing.
The question.
Just a moment, please. So the last part is the contingency and management reserve. For contingency reserve, you derive your contingency reserve by virtue of the risk you have identified. We have identified that it is possible that there will be 2-3% inflation. You factor that into your budget. That is how you derive your contingency reserve. The risk you have identified that will likely occur, you now budget for it. It is likely that your money will disturb you from or you factor their money. It may not, you may not spend, they may not come to disturb you. Now for management reserve is a percentage of the total budget of the project. Between 5 and 10% is the standard. So that is the way you factor the contingency and the management reserve. Another question, please. Any other question? Okay, there's a question on the chat box. The questioner is saying that we've talked about risk and the analysis and the management, but
nothing about insurance, especially when it comes to construction, building or road project. How can I include the idea of buying this insurance policy, compulsory contractor insurance, which is mostly found missing when we are documenting our papers for project approval and thus delay the approval? It's a wrong thing not to factor insurance into your project. You factor it because they are adult workers. So the type of insurance that I'm not an insurance specialist, but it's always good that you have a policy for your workers so that they can be well protected as you implement the project. It's part of the risk that you need to identify that may likely occur. And when you are doing risk management analysis, you try to reduce the risk from occurring. But if it occurs, what will happen? Another question is, which one is best? Is it to avoid the risk, shift it, or which one, or accept? For risk, it is dependent on the type of risk. The particular risk will determine the mitigation plan you need to give to it. Some you may need to avoid it if it is avoidable. Some you may need to accept it if it is difficult to avoid. And there are some you need to just shift it. Shifting risk doesn't mean you are not going to attend to the risk. It is giving it to somebody to take care of. That is when you shift the risk. You give it to someone to take care of so that others can continue the work. For example, I mentioned the issue of Omonile. We know they will come. So when they come, they will want to ensure that no work is done on that project. When it comes, if you have factored that you need to get a particular buy of a major stakeholder of that project, maybe one of the land owners that is very strong influence in the particular community, you'll have gotten the person's buying. It's a major stakeholder. So when the Omonile comes, you shift the issue of attend to them to that man. So he may even go to meet them so that they will not come at all. You have taken care of that risk by shifting to somebody to manage so that the project can move on. My friend once had an experience because the landlord does not do the proper thing. They want to change the roofing of his house. Then they remove it. The moment the Omonile saw that the roof was removed, they just stormed the house. They could not cover the house on the day they expect to cover it. That just remove it in the evening, the following morning we'll put it back. They had to wait for 2 days until they settled the Omonile. And it rained. So the rain affected the person's property. So you can see such a thing. They didn't plan for the risk. They were trying to cut corners. If they had planned for it, maybe they set their money aside. Even if they are asking for 1 million, you can negotiate. So that is for that answer, for that question. Any other question?
Yes, sir. Please, sir, is the work breakdown structure, is it something that you can include in your project charter?
Is it?
Is it something that you can include, or is it like a separate document?
It's another document that is part of the project documentation, the work breakdown structure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other question? While we are waiting more questions, I want to advise or encourage us that project management is a practical thing. The more you do it, the more you get acquainted with doing it. Project planning that I've read out is something that we need to practicalize regularly. You can just pick anything, put up a goal, put up a scope for it, then plan it and see what and what you need to include or the challenges you may face. Then anything we do, we should always try to have a plan, write it down so that you can see what you are trying to do, and in the process of implementing the challenges you go through, it will assist us when we come into handling life projects as the case may be. So it's a thing that you must practicalize so that we can get familiar with doing it. So any other question, please?
Assalamu alaikum,
sir.
Yeah, me, I would like to ask a question on you've done the lecture. Thank you for the lecture. Well, for someone that had issue with practicalizing it, like as I said, I know practical is the important thing. How do I go step to step on practicalizing it? I don't know how to put it. Like you said, all this, I've done a lot of projects, but how do I follow everything on and go about programs following this step that you said? Because at times the project might not have to go through all this. All this I've mentioned now, I might not. Is it necessary that I have to go through everything like this? Might I don't. I hope you get my question. My question is, how do I put it to practical in a short way or in a fast way so I can achieve results? That was my question.
Yeah. Yes. You know, when we talk about projects, you should not be looking at everything to be very big. There are small projects too, and there are big projects. So how you perform doing a small project will determine how you'll be able to handle a medium, a large, a very big project. So as small as organizing birthday party, as small as organizing wedding, or even conducting exam for students, or uh, organizing a tutorial for students. You know, these are things that you can say, okay, 3 months, 1 month, 2 months, we want to organize. So as small as those things are, even they may not require so much funding, we should draw up a plan. See how you can put these parts into it. For example, you want to do organize a tutorial. You break it down. You need a venue for the students. You need people that will handle, okay, how many subjects do you want to do? 5 subjects. You said that from the beginning. You don't go beyond it. Just say because they are requesting, you now go and do 10 so you don't have people to handle them. No. Then is it to prepare them for an exam? Yes. When is the exam? 2 months time. So the lesson will run for 6 weeks. You set your time. Then each subject, what do we cover? You put those things down. That is, you have a scope, you have a goal, you have a scope, you have your timeline, you have you also have the resources you needed to do it. Now you have gotten the teachers, gotten everything, but you did not do publicity. It means that is part of it. You must also do publicity to it. Then you must have your limits. You want to do a tutorial, you have gotten a place that can only accommodate 30 students. When you have 20, you keep bombarding information, then another 30 came. When they come to the space and they just push it and they will go. So you need to set that target. Then once you have commenced, when can people join? So you need to set all those things, put it down. write out everything you think a project needs, that tutorial needs to do. Now you now place them into the various parts that we have mentioned. Which one will fit into the work breakdown structure? Which one is a milestone or task? Then you now need to, of course, you know what budget is. Then the likely problem you can encounter on the project. Once you are able to do it for very small something, like I want to reorganize my cupboard. It's very small. What do I need to be able to do for small projects? You move gradually and do big projects that you may encounter in the long run. Somebody wants to do something, is looking to execute 300 million project. Meanwhile, he or she has never seen 1 million before. You can't manage small fund, you're not able to manage big fund, because there are certain rules that you need to also follow. For example, 300 million, they want to pay into your account cannot accommodate that amount. It means you cannot even do the project. So all those ones need to be understood. From a small project to a big project, you move on like that. And like I said, you keep doing it regularly, you become better in it. Allah Allah.
Jazakallah khairan. You really explained it. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you, sir. That's good.
Okay, you're welcome.
This is good.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I want to apologize again for starting late. Then for the issues along the line due to the slides not following the lecture, I'm really sorry. I couldn't handle the sharing because of where I am.
Hello, sir.
Then I appreciate our presence at today's training. We pray as we move on, we'll get to understand and learn better. We shouldn't end it here. We need to go for more training so that we can become a good project manager. Because even the best of project managers to do fumble, but for everything that happens is a lesson and we move on. That's why documentation is also very important. So, and as we move on, this is the module 3 of this training. Don't let us forget to be part of the next module next week. Then also encourage your colleagues who have been part of it from the beginning to also take part in it. You learn a part and you miss the others, it means your building will not be complete. So let us keep up with the training, and we pray Allah will make it for us and give us the wherewithal to understand the whole lesson that we are trying to pass across. So we'd like to end the session with a closing prayer. If there is any volunteer to lead us in closing prayer so that we can close the curtain for today.
No, can I opt for that?
Okay.
I'm for that. We pray Allah to accept this particular section of month of Ibadah. And may reward every one of us, both the lecturer and also the participants. And also we've learned, taught us a lot. We pray that Allah make this the practical or application of this thing easy for every one of us. And then we pray that we'll be able to implement it and make it and assist Islam with what we've learned today. And also assist our personal selves also, and also MMC too. May Allah reward them all, the organizers, the ideas, thinkers, and everybody that came out about this program. May Allah reward them all abundantly. Allahumma ameen. ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم تب علينا يا مولانا انك انت التواب الرحيم اللهم انا نسالك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا ونعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع ونعوذ بك لا يخشى ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار صلى اللهم على نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. قل ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakumullah khairan to everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Or they can